Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hi, I'm Andrea Claire, and this is my podcast. As humans, we are living in a cannot-win world. Add being a midlife woman to that equation, multiply the pressure tenfold. We see it everywhere. It is plastered across social media. It is no longer just relegated to celebrities. Media of all types are fueling intense appearance anxiety. They are amping up the old and fat talk and exposing us to predatory health misinformation during our already vulnerable menopause transition. It makes so many of us feel isolated. We are constantly navigating unrealistic lifestyle and aging comparisons. We start to feel an overwhelming pressure for perfection. But let's be real, perfection is a myth. It is this modern day quest for the Holy Grail or the fountain of youth. The harder we reach for it, the further we push it away. Here's the truth. We are wading through the murky waters of aging on our own terms. Some of us choose a glacier's pace. Some have genetics and bone structure on our side. Others rely on a lifetime of solid skincare and SPF. But if you want to take your beauty goals a bit deeper, the options are endless. We have everything from aesthetic injectables to the surgical scalpel. Want a tweak? Need a nip and tuck? There is literally zero shame in that. Your fucking body, your choice. Period. Now, I'm an open book. I have had a tummy tuck, but looking back, there are definitely things that I would do differently with the knowledge I have now. Which brings me to my next guest, Mary Regan, who is the founder of the Regan Method. She runs a premier plastic surgery concierge service. Mary is with you every step of your surgical journey. She helps you ask the right questions, gets you honest answers, and pairs you with a bespoke medical team tailored entirely to you. We had a phenomenal, no-holds-barred conversation. We dove into why are we suddenly seeing so many homogenized faces and exactly how Mary builds her exclusive surgeon collective. The Regan Method was born out of Mary's own personal raw experience with plastic surgery. I asked her, among many other candid questions, what sparked the realization that this massive gap existed, and why did she feel the need to spearhead the fix? Mary, welcome to the Fuck You 50s.
Well, your question's fantastic.
Thank you.
So there wasn't a specific moment, but patterns of behavior. I did extensive research into the gaps in plastic surgery, making it my full-time job. I concluded that women needed accurate education and emotional care. So, more doctors on social media doesn't mean more clarity for you. Any more than more Facebook groups of women sharing their surgery stories means they are equipped to evaluate your face or body and tell you what surgical procedures you need, right? There's rampant misinformation being spread in these groups. Doctors are providing material on social media based on what's trending because that's what marketing is telling them to do.
Yeah, it's all like the keywords and buzzwords, right?
Exactly. I wanted to build the necessary connection between doctor and patient and be the type of concierge, consultant, and navigation architect that has never existed. And it's been a wild journey for me. I'm really enjoying it.
And so you've kind of coined this the Regan Method. So what's in that Regan Method toolbox?
Peace of mind. I've always said peace of mind. And why? Because I don't have an agenda. The Regan Method itself is a 5-stage journey. I'm the only one in the industry that wants more for you and less from you. And that's the absolute truth. Because the reason I say that is you come to me. I'm really not out there trying to push you into surgery. You're paying me a fee for 1 year of service, which includes the 5 stages: learning, consultation, surgery, healing, and beyond. There's a reason to be in all those 5 stages. But everything I do for you is in your best interest. It's You're telling me what you're looking for right from the beginning. You may not always hear what you want from me, but you're always going to hear the truth because I'm evidence-based, right? That's how I work. I won't recommend a doctor by zip code or budget. If we did that, if that's all it took to find a great surgeon, then we would never have unhappy patients or botched surgeries, and we still have those.
And I guess too, like you could probably also have a botched surgery from a reputable surgeon, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I knew that question would be would be asked because we do.
Yeah.
Obviously, we do.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we don't with as many board certified surgeons.
Right.
I mean, that's
And
just the truth of the matter.
And I wonder too, and obviously from your experience, you'll know, but I mean, botched surgeries could that also be in the scope of just miscommunication?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, not all botched are botched. A lot of doctors
Right.
don't like the word botched. Is it a revision? Is it an unhappy patient? Is it truly botched? Some who are unhappy consider themselves botched, right?
Right.
So, what is the definition of botched? It can change from patient to patient. So it all depends on what is going on. Communication starts in the consultation, and lack of communication there can create an outcome that you're unhappy with. What happens here is oftentimes they'll go into a consultation and all they're concerned about is memorizing medical jargon. But memorizing medical jargon doesn't mean you're on the same page as the surgeon. You've just memorized what you think you need.
It's funny because I'm a hair and makeup artist by trade, and I'm definitely not going to compare hairstyling to surgery. But it is funny how people come to me to get their hair cut, and they're throwing hairstylist jargon at me, and they don't actually understand it. When I break it down into layman terms, and I'm like, okay, just to let you know, when you say this is actually what you're asking for. And I would say 90% of the time, women are like, oh, no, that's actually not what I want. So I'm always like, show me a picture. Just show me a picture of what you think you want or what you're leaning towards. And I don't know if that's like, that would also help with like referencing with surgery, or if it's just completely apples and oranges there as an
Well,
example.
I want to talk about that a little bit later here, but there's, for instance, there are some doctors who may disagree with me on this, but there's a doctor who recently I saw his facelift, and he had his patient's picture when she was right about 30, then her before photo, and then her photo after surgery. But she was 70 now. And he made the comparison that, look, she looks just like she did when she was 30. But the whole build up to this, it was a lot, the build up to her 30-year-old self. And I made a comment and said, we shouldn't do that. That was irresponsible because of the fact that we don't get to go back to 30. That's not what we're doing here. She isn't sitting on the same skeleton anymore. That 70-year-old is not the same skeleton as the 30-year-old. There's been bone loss. So her tissues are not sitting on that. You can't compare that. And the problem isn't that he did it, and perhaps he didn't mean it quite in that way. It's the perception. It's all these people who are that age, all these women who are that age who come upon this and say, I get my 30-year-old self. I've literally had an 85-year-old woman that said, why can't I be 25 again? You simply cannot. We do not get to turn back the clock. We get to reset from where we are at now. I don't have to be a plastic surgeon to say that.
Yeah, we need to properly set up expectations.
Yeah.
So you have like a directory of surgeons that you work with. So what's kind of your vetting process? Like, do you have any kind of very specific red flags that you won't have a surgeon jump onto your directory, or?
So red flags are missed because marketing language is so good at hiding truth. So for me, I'm aware of a lot of the red flags. For instance, the makers of the Motiva breast implant Establishment Labs strictly restricts the use of their implants to only board-certified plastic surgeons. There are non-board-certified plastic surgeons finding ways to trick women into believing false claims about Motiva because they can't get the product. And they know that they're wonderful, they're very natural, and the chances of capsular contracture with these implants is so very low. Secondly, another red flag, there are false boards out there, and the names and the language used on websites by some doctors is so very close to the real boards, So those kind of things are confusing for the user going out looking on these websites. They're not aware that bad reviews can be removed. Online manufacturer credibility. There are great surgeons who refuse to be ignored, so spend incredible amounts of money to manufacture their social media presence. Women believe this is a sign of their expertise, but I believe I've repeatedly shown an alternate surgeon who can match those results. Those are. They're not necessarily red flags for me in vetting, because in vetting I've talked to so many patients. I continually look for patients to talk to, and I have a whole list of questions that they get. A lot of my stuff is proprietary, so I'm not going to share it. But
Yeah, of course.
And I talk to other doctors, and so I have a lot of input. Humanity matters, right? And what kind of emotional care are they going to get? That's huge. So that's big for me.
How would you deal with like if you had a surgeon that you had vetted that somebody has gone forward with, and if they were not happy, how do you deal with that from your perspective for accountability with a surgeon?
Okay, well, if it's a surgeon in my directory, which I call the collective.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing: we don't have a lot of unhappy situations because we start at the very, very beginning. So when you start with me and you're in the learning stage, everything is about you. We're talking about you. What matters to you? And we get your whole story. Everyone has a plastic surgery story, even though they think they don't. There's a lot of people who think, I just want to have surgery. I just want my boobs done. I just want my face done. There's nothing more to it. But when I give the gift of time, so we start talking and then the story comes out. Hearing the story, learning about what matters to them. Women will say to me, I don't care about the personality of the doctor. I just want to know he can get the job done. But when I hear their story, I know they care about the person. I know that connection matters.
Right.
So hearing that and finding out what is important and then pointing out to them what is important from what I've learned, what I've gleaned in my time with them, we start to paint a picture about who they really need in their life. It's not just about skill. It's about what kind of emotional connection do you need? What kind of personality do you need? How do you communicate best? That's the thing. In the beginning, there's a lot for me to establish with the patient that they don't realize they need. And then when they establish the relationship with the doctor, and I'm there, like I'm not there physically, but I am there with them walking along, the communication and the relationship building and the trust they establish, there's nothing missed. When you have really effective communication and you're on the same page, you trust so much that as you're going through that journey, you work together. There's nothing missed.
I told you that I had a tummy tuck in Singapore, and I had gone to two doctors, one that was the famous guy that was written about in all the magazines, and I went to him. He was such a jackass, like such a jackass. And he made me feel like total shit about myself. I had the diastasis recti, like the mummy split.
Yep.
And he had me lie on the ground, and he did that finger test where you push through your abdominal muscles to see how much go through. And I'd been doing Pilates, and he told me that won't close up anymore on its own. It has to be done surgically. Explained why it's important for women to have it closed up, and yada yada. And then he just suddenly leans over and he grabs at my back. And he starts squeezing, and he said, and then after this is done, then we can talk about all of this, and was going on about all the liposuction that I need, like from top to toe. And I I was horrified. I think the quote I got to for my tummy tuck was like $90,000, which,
Ooh,
again, it's one of those things too, like when, I don't know if you feel the same way, but like, I get some Botox done. And when you go to get something done, people shouldn't be like, oh, you're here because, gosh, your nose is so big. We need to slim it down. It's like, it should be, why are you here to see me? Not what do you see that's all wrong with me? Like, it was crazy. Then I went to my GP and I told her about my experience. So my GP was like, oh, I'm going to send you to this other doctor. He's so lovely. I sent a lot of patients there. And I went to him and he was so lovely. Like his bedside manner was great. His anesthetist that he worked with, she was so lovely as well. They kind of left me through everything and they could achieve and what their recommendations were. But then after I had it done, um, you get a new belly button in case people don't know that. And I went to see him and it got infected. And he said, oh, the stitches had popped. And I have this weird scar tissue now. I hate my belly button. It looks so funny. To me, I'm sure no one else would notice. But here's the thing: like, I feel like a lot of us get stuff done for ourselves. And one more thing, I also want to kind of lean into how you talk about like the post care as well, because nobody really talked about post care with me whatsoever. When I came out of the surgery, I remember he said to me, I did the corset stitch on you. He's like, oh, got you so nice and tight. It's so tight. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or not. But, and maybe that was from living in Singapore, that's the thing that they expect. But then a couple years later, coming to Canada, we would come home to Canada every summer. So this is literally a couple years later. So you think it's all healed.
yeah.
And I was pulling luggage out of a car and I felt this excruciating pain rip through my body, through my abdominal, that it took the wind out of me. And I literally sat down on the curb and then it kept kind of happening over the next few days. I ended up going into a walk-in clinic, which is so, no offense to my fellow Canadians, but medical errors really needs to be fixed. But I went into a walk-in clinic and the doctor was like, oh, you have an ulcer. And he gave me ulcer medication. It's like, you can't tell someone has an ulcer without doing any tests. I honestly feel, Mary, I feel like that tearing that I was feeling had something to do with whatever corset stitch she did. And I'm so curious as to if there's scar tissue and damage from that, because that's how I
Well,
feel.
that would take an evaluation, right? But and not for me to decide. But
Yeah. There's my
um,
hour story.
yeah.
But I think, but getting back to like, I feel like any woman that's looking to have plastic surgery done, like I feel like hiring you with your services would be so fantastic because you're going to pair people up as you do, and then talk about like what does it entail for you and your clients for post care.
This is something I talk about because no one talks about it, and it gets me furious. Because they always call it the blues, right? The reality is it's a profound biochemical event in healing. Healing is when people call me all the time because of this. And this is what I always say to people. Doctors warn about the blues, but rarely name what's happening. Your cortisol, the stress hormone, surges dramatically to handle inflammation, staying elevated for up to 7 days. Now, we all know about hormones, right? You all know about cortisol, causing intense fatigue and anxiety. Endorphins spike, then drop, leading to sadness. Dopamine and serotonin fluctuate and crash during physical stress and lack of sleep. You are on an emotional roller coaster for 2 weeks, and hormonal stabilization can take 6 months. That is the during. I teach clients all the time to actively manage this crash using natural methods because you have to heal the nervous system just as much as the deep healing of surgery. And the reality is that your face or body will go through changes. And if your brain story, your mirror story before surgery is one focused on the flaws, your brain will search for flaws and it will find them because what you have told your brain is literally your truth. We change that when you're working with me. And you know what? Nobody's going to tell you those things because nobody wants to scare you away from surgery, but that's reality. It's a huge hormonal event.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? Not even just about plastic surgery. I had both my hips replaced because living in Singapore, I got a mosquito illness. When I had my first hip replacement, I mean, it's depressing too. Like I was in my 40s and I'm literally having to use a walker. And I remember lying in bed because there's a big part of a time where you're not able to kind of move around too much. So depressed by myself and just unhappy and crying. According to Google, having your hip replaced is one of the number one surgeries that causes post-surgery depression. I loved my orthopedic surgeon, but why didn't he tell me that? Like, it's funny how post-care. So getting back to plastic surgery, like of course, like post-care, you're going to have these feelings. You're going to probably feel alone. You're going to see like bruising or whatever, right? You're going to get affected by that, of course.
Swelling. People have a really hard time with swelling. And the thing about swelling is some people swell nice, right? They're really nice swellers. I swell like a watermelon. So for me, it's like my face is this big round mess. I'm anxious for swelling to be gone. Now, when swelling comes back, you think you bend down, you empty the dishwasher, you do the laundry, then they panic. It's just you did too much, you bent down too much, and you caused that swelling to come back again. So often people will panic at these kind of things and think something's gone wrong, but your hormones are depleted. Everything is focused on healing. So because women, by the time you reach perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, you're already having hormonal issues. We then have, we have skin issues and, things like that because skin is a huge factor in maintenance.
There's a lot of people too that are taking GLP-1s and Ozempic. How does that affect surgery? Because I've heard that it does affect because of the skin.
Well, with GLP-1, depending on, you're going to have anesthesia at first, right? You got to go off for a little bit of time. GLP-1, I talk a lot about that as far as in the face, because that's mostly what people talk about is how your face is just deflated. But the thing is, those fat cells are still there. It's not like liposuction in another part of your body where you've removed the fat cells and they're gone. Those fat cells in your face, they're still there. Someone was talking to me recently about Kelly Osbourne and said, look at her face. Those fat cells, she had a chubbier face before.
Mm-hmm.
Those fat cells that made that face chubby, they're still there. They weren't removed from her face. If she were to gain weight again, that, some of us, I'm one who gains weight in my face quickly. I gain and lose in my face easily. But she had a chubbier face. Those fat cells are there. You have those who lose weight with GLP-1, and then they say, okay, well, look at my face. They want to have a facelift. The skin is sagging. I get that. And they want to now say, okay, I want to have fat transfer in my face.
Mm-hmm.
So another part of their body, their abdomen, their back, their thighs, wherever, them and their provider decide that they're extracting the fat from. When they put that fat in their face, they still have fat cells in their face. Remember, they're facial fat. Those fat cells are just small, right? There's nothing in them. So now they put more fat cells in their face, and those fat cells will behave the way the place they came from. If they took fat from their abdomen, that's how those fat cells are going to behave. If they gained weight easily in their abdomen, those fat cells will gain weight easily in their face because it's going to behave the same way that it did prior. But now you have facial fat cells that are small. Now you have abdominal fat cells. The patient has responsibility for those fat cells.
Mm-hmm.
They don't take responsibility for those. They blame the doctor. You would be surprised at how many times I'll say to people, okay, how does fat grow? And they'll say, well, I don't know. How does fat grow? How does fat grow? And how do you lose fat? Calories, right? Calories in, calories out. If you've got fat in your face, now we've come a long way with fat transfer. And doctors will tell you medically everything that's happening. I know it because they've taught me. My doctors are fabulous in educating me. And I understand it all, but let's just speak in layman's terms here, right? Let's just say it like it is. You've got fat in your face, and if you are not going to keep up that fat, then guess what? It's going to go the same way the facial fat did. You're now going to have small fat cells of facial fat. You're now going to have small fat cells of abdominal fat, and it's not working because you're not maintaining that weight. Right? So if you go into surgery, you have to, and you're going to fat transfer. I am wondering, because I have people that say fat doesn't work in the face when you're GLP-1. They just tell me that, right? So if that's the case, then you're going to have to try Sculptra. Sculptra was created for those with AIDS and who had lost volume in their face.
What is Sculptra? Is that like a filler? Is that what that is?
It's a biostimulator.
Okay.
So, yeah. So in order for you to have volume, you have to try another option. If you can't sustain that fat in your face. But that's really the GLP-1 that I see as the biggest problem.
A lot of times we do get our aesthetic inspiration from Hollywood. That we're seeing a lot of homogenization of beauty. So how do we help women navigate the line between wanting to look refreshed and then accidentally falling into the trap of looking like everybody else?
Women get caught up in chasing trends, seeing before and after photos, and wondering if that could be them. The cookie cutter ideal of beauty. The problem is we don't actually get that, even if they're chasing it. Because the problem is the Instagram face is just that on Instagram. It isn't in real life. A celebrity surgeon had a patient in People, and she looked in her 20s, but she was almost 70. And they praised him as a god for what he created in this. But several months later, I found her own photo that she posted at the Kentucky Derby. She looked like a beautiful woman of her age that had a facelift. Not an obvious, it wasn't obvious, but she looked like a woman of her age. Women, who are 70 have wrinkling skin, sagging skin. She didn't. So you knew she had a facelift, but it was a very well done facelift, right? But she didn't look like she did in People. The reality was that was heavily filtered. The photo itself was inaccurate. And I thought, see, this is what's wrong here. And for me with my clients, the reason we don't go there is because I have the 80-20 rule all the time. You're not getting perfection. We need to find your 20% compromise. We have to look in the mirror and do some face mapping and say, okay, what is your 20% compromise? Because skin is the stretchiest organ in the body. And it isn't that the underlying structures aren't tight. They are. But the skin itself is not going to be the same. It's not. The skin is going to stretch from surgery after that swelling. The skin is going to stretch. How much depends on genetics, and your lifestyle, whether you're menopause, all of that, right?
Yeah, I guess it's all about, again, setting up the expectations. I think here too, there's that that phrase, comparison is the thief of joy, which is such a great phrase because I think a lot of us do it, and especially women, we compare ourselves to other people. We compare ourselves to see what Hollywood is pushing out. The other thing I wanted to mention too, when you talk about the woman's facelift in People magazine and how her photo was different. There's some makeup artists who they'll be doing makeup for red carpet for celebrities, and they look great. They're very talented. You don't get up to that level doing red carpet without knowing what you're doing. But some of them actually retouch the celebrity, and then they'll post. And it's supposed to be a behind the scenes in the chair getting made up kind of photo, which should be a bit more raw anyway, but they retouch it, post it to their social media. But then you see the paparazzi, you see those photos. We're still seeing things that are filtered and retouched that are supposed to be random behind the scenes. It's not, it's all curated.
Well, that's where there's a real problem, because that's where the before and after picture comes in. And I just wrote a piece on that about the dopamine effect. But because the before and afters give, again, it's a doctor will talk to you about 80-20. He's going to say, you're not getting perfection. You're getting 80 to 90% of where you are now. But what they'll do is the pictures are always 100%. The angles and the lighting always shows 100% improvement. So you're talking out of one side of your mouth because you're showing photos that are perfected. And it's like, this is not realistic. And I understand what they're showing. I get this. But if you're looking at it from that perspective, you get it. But if you're someone who has this big turkey waddle and you're really, vulnerable and you're looking at it from, I can have that.
Because of social media, I think it's kind of made a lot of things popular. It's like that, selling the aspiration of what people want, right? So, and I talk a lot about on the podcast about brands that are selling us solutions to problems that they've invented. How much of the current plastic surgery boom do you think is driven by genuine desires versus the predatory marketing targeting women in midlife?
Yes.
You're like, that's a great question.
And it really is.
I hope this is not coming across at all like I'm shitting on plastic surgery, because 100%
No,
I am not at all.
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
I think these are real questions that we need to talk about because a lot of them I don't think we do talk about. It's always about, it's always about what's trending. So the trending stuff just gets on my nerves. I believe in the relationship between, the patient and the doctor. I work hard to build that, to change the industry in the way that I believe it needs to be changed. But at the same time, I think there's things that they try to stay away from. And I appreciate that you don't want to do that. So I think we can dig even a lot more deeper. My response to that, predatory marketing targeting women in midlife, society doesn't treat aging as desirable. And as long as the search for the foundation of youth continues, marketing will dangle the easy fix as well as the scalpel. There are people in the industry whose job it is, literally, who have made their money to teach staff and doctors how to groom the patient from the time they make the connection. That's one of my biggest beefs. And the reason being is because women are so vulnerable and they don't see it coming. I know it's a business, a transaction, but with women being so vulnerable, this practice, doing that, is psychological. But in my what I have built in the Regan Method, I believe that while the pressure is in abundance, the vast majority of my clients want to look on the outside the way they feel on the inside. And the reason for it is because the time women reach their 50s, the ebb and flow of life is showing. For some, including myself, there's a feeling of lost years.
Yeah.
So in my business, I ensure a woman's decision comes from her own story, not outside pressure.
Yeah, you had a good point too about women when they're in their 50s. They feel like they've missed some things in their life because a lot of times we're the nurturers of the family.
Yep.
And so we've spent so much time taking care of others and maybe as well as ourselves. So then it just gets to a point where, yes, we're become empty nesters and we have more time to focus on ourselves. And
they look in the mirror. It's the mirror story. I talk a lot about the mirror story. What are you telling yourself when you look in the mirror? And that's where a lot of the feelings come from. And not that I'm saying they don't, fall prey to, marketing and all that's out there. Absolutely. But when I work with women, we look in the mirror. That's how I really establish in the learning stage in the beginning. Because consultation, we're working on communication. You don't get a result without effective communication. So when we're in the learning stage, it's very personal.
Do you deal with a lot of women bursting into tears?
Yes, all the time. Because you see, when you give someone the gift of time, here's the difference with me. Okay, we have a lot to learn. And if it's going to take 2 hours on the phone today and 2 hours on the phone next week, then that's what it's going to take, right? But plastic surgery shouldn't be rushed. You shouldn't walk into this because you have your tax return back. You shouldn't walk into this because, My neighbor had surgery with him down the street and he's got a sale going on and my tax return get back, or, I got my bonus from work. That is not how you walk into plastic surgery, in my opinion. We're going to have to get to know you because this is a year. Just because you feel better in 2 weeks, just because you look better in a month, just because you're wedding ready in 6 or your high school reunion in 6, just because all that happens doesn't mean you're healed. There's a lot of stuff that's going to go on for this next year. I'm invested in you. I only charge you $500 and you're getting a year of me. I'm invested in you. And if you don't want that investment because your tax return is enough and you don't realize what this looks like, then I'm not for you. And that's okay.
You talk about your rate, which I wonder if people will be listening to this wondering if you get kickbacks from your doctors, which I know that you don't, but maybe talk about that just so people understand how your system works.
Okay. The reason I did this the way I did, the Regan Method has the collective, which is the doctor directory. It also will soon have the Regan House, which is the back side, the private side to my website where you can go and have access to surgeons and speak to them. Okay, so when I first began, the Regan Method is my 5-stage journey, right, to walk through this for the whole year. I wanted to have doctors connected to my method that you don't have to use. I can vet another doctor for you. That's fine. But I wanted to have doctors that I personally vetted based on all of my research and what people wanted in doctors, right? So, and then of course my own criteria that I came up with, and doctors throughout the U.S. and Canada that I could have a directory of that I personally vetted. And in order for them to be there, they had to sign on to my vision, which was education and emotional care. There's a lot more to it, but I don't give it all away.
Yep, of course.
And so I wanted them to sign on to that. And my belief in what both women and men needed in order to have a successful journey. So they would pay me a monthly subscription fee to be listed in my collective, my directory. To be there, they can be recommended by me. I get nothing if they get surgery. And the reason being, because that is a kickback. But the reason I can do this legally is because I have that directory, right? They are allowed to be in that directory only. They are allowed to be in the Regan House. So you could have a Q&A with doctors similar to Real Self. Now I'm creating one that's actually live. So you go and speak to doctors live.
I love that.
So what they get for being in the collective is they get access to members and clients in education only. So that means I throw live Q&As together. They get to come and educate members. They get to be on the Q&A page or in the Regan House, which will be the Q&A section. You could go in there and you could talk to them, but everything's educational. It's not a free consultation. So they get access to members who join my private site. They get access to that. They get access to lives. They get access to any educational opportunity. Whether they get surgery from any of those is based on who they are. That's what I tell them. If you educate, if you build a relationship, you build up trust, then they may come to you for surgery. But I recommend who I believe is a good match. I get nothing for it. That's why I said earlier, I don't have an agenda. You paid me to walk this journey with you. Those doctors pay me to be in that list, whether they get surgery or not. But you know what? They get surgery. The reason they get surgery is because they invest so heavily in educating my members and they care deeply.
And they understand and are invested, obviously, in your method.
They believe in the vision or I wouldn't invite them. Dr. Kaplan in San Diego, I just signed him. And I said to him, you have to believe in my mission. And so when we get there through the process that I have with them, by the time I get to that place where I'm having that interview with them, I have done a ton of vetting. So I know everything about them. And I love the person they are. I know they're going to be good. I've never had an unhappy client. I've had hundreds. Sometimes right after surgery, somebody may have a little something that they're worried about. I can text the doctor because my clients will say, you can talk to Mary. They want them to. And they'll text me and say, gosh, I'm really worried about my swelling. And I'll text a doctor and they'll say, I'll call the patient, right?
Have you turned away clients where they've come to you and you're just like, you're either high maintenance or maybe you need a therapist before you need surgery. Maybe maybe not so abrupt. But have you turned people away?
I have turned away someone who refuses to be open-minded. If you just feel you know it all and you don't want to go through the stages. Like I've had some who they know there's perks. There's doctors of mine who will have a really long wait system, and they know that if you're a client of mine, they're going to get in earlier, something like that. They're only kind of using me to get to the doctor, right? That's not a client I feel I can work with.
Just charge them triple.
They're just kind of like, I don't want you, I just want you for this. That's not the ideal client. I work too hard to help people to make sure that everything works well for them from the beginning to the end.
So true. I've heard, for example, like some people when they get a nose job that they will have to have another nose job at one point in their life. But there is that misconception of plastic surgery is kind of like a one and done. And can we talk about the long-term reality of maintenance and what does that actually look like for a patient over the next 20 years or so?
The biggest reality when it comes to, the nose job thing is it's kind of funny because I have to have a revision on my nose. And I live in Atlanta, but I'm from Northern Ontario. And I played ringette when I was little. I fell and I broke my nose right where my glasses sit. So that was the only thing I had to get fixed. But where my nose healed in one of my nostrils, literally 10 months after my rhinoplasty, my scar tissue acted up really bad. And so I have to get a revision because of that. So it even happens to me, but it was not doctor error. It was just scar tissue. We've tried to use different injections, but it hasn't worked. So I'm going to get a small revision. But the biggest reality check is peri and postmenopause because the skin takes a massive hit. And skin health is the biggest predictor for a facelift because in maintenance, like I said previously, you aren't becoming a younger you. You can't. Your skin and tissues don't even sit on the same skeleton anymore, and because of bone loss. So in surgery, you are repositioning the structures that are underneath your skin, not to where they were originally because you are no longer that original self. They are repositioned to a more natural position than they are now. But you know what? We never used to live this long. Just like with menopause, we never used to experience that. There were select few that did. It wasn't that long ago that 35 years old was life expectancy. So having said that, structures are now repositioned. And when that happens, the skin follows it. And voila, we end up with a surplus. So they cut it off. But because skin is our stretchiest organ, it is going to stretch back out. How much is determined by genetics. The integrity of your skin, your lifestyle, maintaining that result means good skin care and thickening of that skin. Think like laser, microneedling, annually. And how much does that matter to you?
So do you know if a woman is considering a facelift, should she wait until she's in menopause, or does it matter if you're doing it if you're in perimenopause still or not, if the skin changes?
Well, you always want to take care of your skin. If the skin is sagging, it has that much more stretch to it, that much more texture issues. So you can get a great facelift at any age. Recently I was sent a video from a woman on Instagram who had some asinine statement about you can't get a good facelift if you haven't got it between 45 and 60 because the muscles in your face won't heal, are too old. I was like, what in the hell? And you won't heal properly. You never heal properly after age 60. And I said, well, what does heal properly mean? Like and what about muscle? You ever seen a bodybuilder after the age of 50? It happens and people can rebuild it. So why are your face muscle? There's only one muscle in a deep plane facelift that actually, that they're dealing with. It would distort the face if you worked on, other deeper muscles. I've had an 80-year-old get a neck lift and she absolutely loved it. So as far as your skin goes, of course, anytime gravity takes hold and everything starts to slide. Like I said,
Yeah, gravity is such a bitch.
yeah, your skin and the structures of your skin and texture and all of that. Let's face it, if you wait too long, then that's harder. That skin is thinned out. It's stretched and fallen and thinned out. And if you're in menopause, post menopause, and if you're not using HRT, your skin is in bad shape. It's more of a skin issue than you don't want to wait until your skin is falling off your face. If you want it to hold up well, that doesn't mean you have to have it at 45. And if you have really good skin, I mean, I'm looking at your skin. You have beautiful skin.
Thank you. My background is like I'm half Danish and Icelandic. So I feel like part of it is my background. And then also being a makeup artist, like I've been using high-end skincare for years and years and years and years. So I used to work in a salon in Yorkville in the 90s. So Yorkville in Toronto was like back then, like the posh area where everybody had the money and spent the money and all the posh boutiques and posh hair salons and whatnot. And so the salon that I worked at, we had a lot of celebrities that came in, different types of clients all the time, a lot of people with money. And so I saw a lot of women that had facelifts done. And I don't know if they do the same thing now, but they would do this kind of headband cut. So they would have like ear to ear scar on the top of their head. So you'd be washing somebody's hair.
Yeah.
And I definitely, like, you don't say anything. Like, why would, like, I'm not, like, you notice it in your head. You're like, oh, this person had a facelift. But the amount of women that would say to me, oh, do you see my scar? I'm like, oh, you have a scar? I'd never be like, yeah. I'm like, oh, no, I didn't notice your scar. Oh, yeah, I got thrown from a windshield, in a car accident when I was younger. Like, I can't tell you that I think I saw 20 women that got thrown from a windshield. But it's a facelift scar, which is funny. And then, so I don't know if they're still doing that method, and maybe it depends. But I had a client in Singapore that she had a facelift done there. Oh, it was called it wasn't a full facelift, it was a partial, but they did the cut just in front of her ears. And God, it looks so good. She wanted her highlights done. She was like, will it gross you out? I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, I'm happy to do your highlights. As long as your surgeon says that you're fine to have it done, it's fine. And so I saw her during her like healing stage. God, it was so good. And then of course, because she was one of my regular clients in Singapore, then I even saw it as it had fully healed. It was just amazing, that technique.
There's so many techniques are changing. Everything's evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. They talk about even with like hip replacements and knee replacements that.
I've had both knees replaced.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, fun times. If you could dismantle one must-have procedure that you think is a total scam for women our age, what would it be?
Yeah. Well, the funny part about that is the people that would fight me on this, because this is just the truth. And I would dismantle surgery that isn't surgery. Aggressive liquid facelifts, threads, 1 hour lifts, etc. Why? Because the anatomical truth is that your SMAS is the structure holding everything in place. It is attached to your skin, and underneath it is attached to muscle. And when that starts descending, it drags down fat pads in the midface, stretches ligaments, muscle, and skin. And we add to that bone loss that changes the shape of your face, as I was talking about earlier. You cannot fix that with a thread or a needle. You need that structure surgically repositioned. Anything else is a scam. And you will spend more money trying to fake a lift than by doing the actual surgery. It just doesn't last. And when you do threads, doctors don't want to lose their quick, easy buck, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why they get threatened by me saying this. And none of my doctors do it. But
is it threads? Is that what gives? Because you see, some people where it goes back to the homogenized look, where some women, they just look like they have this like Joker mouth. Is that caused from threads?
Yeah, and the threads get their little hooks, right?
Yeah, like barbed wire, right? Don't they like yank it and then they
and it goes. They go from here and they go all the way.
Yeah,
up,
from the jaw to the temple.
And so. But the thing about threads is when you put the threads into your jawline, you're creating a lot of scar tissue. right? I've had clients who have come down from Edmonton, actually. I had one who came down to one of my doctors here. She had the threads. It took so much time to deal with the threads, and all the scar tissue that he had to deal with the threads are a nightmare.
So to say no to threads.
Oh, it's a big problem. And when you get to that point, you get to our age, surgery really is your option. If you don't want to have surgery, and that's all there's to it. You don't want to have surgery, you want to do filler. I mean, there's certainly people that do that. The thing is, that can be really expensive over time, and keeping it up, right? And it's so temporary. I saw a celebrity surgeon the other day. He had posted on TikTok, because we're talking about filler. He was asked a question about what's going to change in the next 5 years. And he said, I think how we're going to change things is we're just going to change, what we do with filler. And he said, we're putting filler in the tear troughs, and we're finding it down in the jawline. And he didn't elaborate. And I was so pissed off, because I thought, that is just going to scare the heck out of everybody, and having nothing to do with filler itself, whether yay or nay to filler.
Mm-hmm.
My point was, here you are, and you have this massive following, and you make a statement like that without any kind of scan to show it, any patient story, not mentioning what type of filler this is, how in the world it migrated that far, what was the timeline on that, what is the purpose of sharing this, who are you calling out in the industry, because you're a celebrity surgeon yourself. What are you making better by sharing this? And that's my point, because we have lots of doctors that get on these bandwagons and trends, and if something's calibrated, it's going to be a benefit to them somehow. And I don't like that. If you're going to get out there and you're going to call something out, bring out the facts, call it all out, show the scans, let's do it all, let's put it out there, and let's help people.
As the kids say, show receipts.
There you go. There you go. That's right. You had asked me a question about women in their 50s being ignored by the medical community, and how do I change the power dynamic when a woman walks into a high-end surgical suite? These are things that are so important to me. Women in their 50s, it's a known fact that women later in life can feel defeated and are easily intimidated. My first order of business when we're in that first stage is internal. By the time they enter a consultation, they are on the exact same playing field as the doctor. In fact, the doctor is their trusted partner. That's building that bridge is fundamental, because psychological and emotional care is more important than surgery itself. Doctors continually tell me that not only are my clients a breath of fresh air, but they're unlike any other that walks through their door. If I can keep doing that, then that's how we change the industry. Because I had a woman who called me right after I started from California, and she said her 22-year-old daughter had told her she was going to Florida for a tummy tuck, and she went to Tijuana. I'm not dissing Mexico. I would say this if it happened anywhere else, but she went to Tijuana, and she got a call that she died on the table.
Oh my God.
And she said to me, the only thing I ask from you is, and I didn't know her, she just heard about me, and so she called me, and she said, the only thing I ask from you is, please don't ever let a child die. And because her daughter was, like I said, only 22. The one thing that the Regan Method and the website is meant to do, and the reason the private side is there is people want privacy, but we don't think they do with social media the way it is, but they do. And I said to her, I want to have an area where people can always go to find truth and accurate and verifiable information, so that this kind of thing doesn't have to happen.
Yeah. Also, why is a 22-year-old getting a tummy tuck?
Well, why are some 18, 19, 20-year-olds getting the Botox in the back of their neck to lengthen their neck, which is danger to their spine?
I have not even heard that. That's a new one for me. Wow.
I have thoroughly enjoyed this.
Me too.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. I really appreciate your time and your expertise. Maybe just quickly, Mary, if you just want to say your website, where to find you.
ReganMethod.com, REGAN. You can join the email list at mary@thereganmethod.com. You can reach me there too if you have any questions, if you want to talk about becoming a client. As far as the Regan House, that's going to be launching August 1st. It's a wonderful private space that looks like a mall. You literally walk around and learn everything you could possibly ever want to know about plastic surgery. There are experts throughout, and I'm really excited about that launch date. And maybe Andrea can be our live hostess for the launch date.
Oh my gosh, I would
What do you
love
think?
that. I
Oh,
would
yay!
love that. Yes.
Well, that would be awesome. We have tons of giveaways that night. Doctors are coming on to give away all kinds of skincare, and you walk in and you're your own avatar. You look just like yourself, and you sit down on a couch. You can favorite Andrea, you can favorite me, you can favorite any of your doctors, and you'll get a notification on your phone when any of the experts, any of the skincare experts, any of them, the doctors, any of them are in the Regan house. They go there live. It's not a forum. It's not a platform like Facebook or anything like that. They go there live. You'll see somebody sitting on the couch or at the counter getting a coffee. You'll literally walk over just like an avatar and you'll sit with them and you'll start talking to a doctor, and it's educational. You talk to the doctor, you'll find out who it is. If for instance, Dr. Brian Brandon, Dr. Philip Solomon is a doctor in Canada, in Toronto, just in Hamilton, facial plastic surgeon. You could talk to him and say, I don't have him on there yet, but I'm trying to get him on. So I've sent him an invitation. So putting this out there.
Yeah.
But if he's in the house, if he joins me and he's in the house, I love Dr. Solomon, just to let you know, and have vetted him, and he's been sent an invitation recently. So, if he were there and in the house and sitting at the counter, you'd sit beside him, you'd start talking to him. Literally a chat bubble would come up and you would talk to him. When that conversation is finished, everything disappears. We are not keeping threads. We are not keeping conversations. It's what happens in the Regan house stays in the Regan house.
God, I love that.
August
Yeah.
1st.
I'm totally.
I will give you the details.
Absolutely. Thank you. So the launch date, is it like an open to the public kind of thing, or they need to be?
Yes.
Okay. That's amazing.
Yes. I'll give you all the details.
Okay.
It's exciting. I'm super excited for all of the wonderful things that are happening that day.
It's so great. And I'm so glad that you have this company, because I definitely have talked to women over the years that have either been wanting to do something plastic surgery, but they don't kind of know what to ask or what to look for or how to find a doctor. And I also know women that have had botched, or I guess from their perspective, botched surgeries that require revision. So someone like you could really help out for sure. Anyway, I guess we should probably wrap this up. Thank you.
Well, thank you again. This was tremendous fun. I loved it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mary. Thanks for tuning in to the Fuck You 50s. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow and rate the podcast. And we would love to connect with you on Instagram. So be sure to follow us at the Fuck You 50s. The Fuck You 50s is hosted by Andrea Claire. See you next time.